Good afternoon, everyone. So, as promised, see, I invited someone to come in today. We're going to be talking about Hecate today. For those who've been asking about Hecate, and there she is. I'm going to bring her in. I'm going to bring in Ellen Brown to the video. You got it fast.
Hiya.
Hi, how you doing? So,
Good, thank you.
letting everyone know that we're gonna be talking about Hecate today. So, um, for all those who are gonna be watching this video and who's gonna watch it later, I will share it to YouTube and to other pages. So, Ruth is gonna talk to us about Hecate today. So we're gonna start off by introducing yourself, Ruth.
I'm Ruth, and I came to witchcraft just over a year ago, and the main goddess that called to me was Hecate, and she came to me after I went through like a really quite a long dark night of the soul for a year. And it's often when she appears, it's like when you go through a spiritual transformation or some kind of personal transformation. That's when I started taking notice, because she started sending me signs, and I felt like I was being called to her, and more we just had really strange coincidences.
Hmm. Okay. How long have you been working with her energies, Ruth?
Um, probably about probably about 6 or 7 months now.
6 or 7 months.
Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
and I I've done the first two dark moon rituals to her.
Okay.
On my first dark moon ritual, I had quite an interesting experience where um, she communicates a lot through dreams and things like that, and I had a really kind of vivid dream on the night of the dark moon after my ritual, where I was shown a portal to the void state, or it's kind of like the underworld or death, I would imagine it to be, because she rules the underworld. And in this portal, I just became an electromagnetic frequency, and I felt like I was being shown something.
Mm. Okay. And but do you I saw your videos and you were doing I like the money ritual you were doing, the last video you made. It
Yeah.
was yeah, it was really nice. But what drew you to working with Hecate? I know you started, but can you elaborate a little bit more? The reason why I ask, because there's a lot of people that ask me, how can I work with Hecate and stuff. Since I'm not an expert, I know a little bit about her, but I'm not an expert, so I'm like, hold on, somebody's
Um,
talking. I always do this because so
you just for a
give me a
second
second.
there.
So it's like, what
It
drew
was,
you uh, to start working with her? How was the calling? What did you feel?
yeah, the calling. It wasn't a case that I chose her. It was a case like I just felt like there was a deep connection that went way longer than a year ago. I've always had really visionary and prophetic and psychic dreams, and
Hmm.
I've had owls appear to me in my dreams. I've always paid attention to dream symbolism, and she works a lot through dreams.
Hmm.
Another thing that she kind of rules is activism, especially kind of, she's quite protective over things like feminine issues, like protecting vulnerable people, protecting the marginalized. Um, ecology as well and animals. And I think if I think about the very first thing that I can ever remember, but my grandpa gave me a book on herbalism and herbs when I was a child. And in this herbal dictionary, there are all these different herbs, and Hecate is known for her herbs and a herb garden, and she kind of educates you into herbalism. And this one plant really stood out to me that I was just fascinated with, and it was the belladonna plant, deadly nightshade. And Hecate rules poisonous herbs as well as healing herbs, and she kind of uses them in witchcraft to cure people or kind of cast spells. So that I feel like that was my very first sign thinking about it. But I've always kind of abided by her moral rules, and there are like specific moral rules that she likes to pick people for, and things like commitment to personal development and tolerance of those who are less fortunate or helping those who are less fortunate or different, virtuous living, emotional diversity, like, you may have tried many different paths before you come to her. And then witchcraft, she rules witchcraft as well. And I actually got into witchcraft before I realised I was getting signs from this goddess calling me.
Mm.
She often initiates you into witchcraft through the dark night of the soul. So I would say that she was probably with me during my dark night of the soul. And my interest in witchcraft probably came unconsciously through her, through kind of like following signs. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I do a lot of gardening and I grow herbs as well, and I've always grown herbs and been interested in herbs. So I grow these lavender plants, and lavender is one of her most sacred herbs. And I've always felt a deep connection with the moon as well, and she rules the moon. I have had some feminine health problems in my life, which I have cured pretty much now. Connecting with the moon was a big part of healing those things. Um, so
Okay.
I think that's it, really. I mean, I've always kind of been interested in psychic development and meditation and things like entering trance-like states. And that's another thing that she governs as well, is kind of she gives you the ability to connect to things in those trance-like states and come back with information.
Oh wow. So, but before you started working, I know there's a lot of people. They're doing something here. They're about to stop. The background noise. Let me see if I could tell them to tune it down a little bit. Give me 1 second. So, well, I'm gonna ask you a question. Wait, did you like study Wicca before you started working with her? Were you into that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I was introduced to when I was looking at witchcraft was Wicca, and Wicca really appealed to me because of the reverence of nature and the reverence of women and female goddesses. And I mean, I was brought up a Christian and kind of in a very male-oriented religion, and discovering Wicca um, just felt like something quite natural that I wanted to be part of because I've always had a deep connection with nature anyway.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I just had to tell the guys to shut down the stuff real quick, because there are people saying uh, they're saying that the noise is really bad and stuff. But anyways, let me see. So um, it's 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 a little bit. I don't know if that's better. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah,
Okay, okay. Guys, just let you know she is in England, right?
yeah, in the UK, in Yorkshire.
Yeah, in the UK, so the connection is not gonna be that great, you know. And we are like 6 hours apart. So
Yeah,
right now it's dark over there and it's light over here.
yeah, it
I
is.
yeah, yeah, I saw the okay, fixed there. Okay, now they're happy. Okay, I saw that video where you were making that you were making that crunching and the herbs and stuff that I comment on.
Yeah,
That,
yeah, I work with a lot of herbs and kind of grinding them up and using them in spells and things.
okay. Can you I shared the video. Can you tell us more about that? Because I did have a lot of like what you call it, personal messages asking me about that.
Is
That
that the
that
money spell or the protection oil?
that protection oil, yes.
Oh, right,
How
the
do we use
protection oil, yeah.
Hecate, or if you want to give us a little bit of rundown on what who Hecate is first.
Yeah, sure. Um, so Hecate has several different names that she's kind of referred to. She's kind of a goddess of life and death and transitions and everything in between. She's known as the guardian of souls, um, queen of the witches, mother of angels, and the cosmic world soul, and also the guardian of the marginalized. She's a triple form Greek goddess,
Mm-hmm.
and she was worshipped in the Greek kind of pantheon to protect the house and bestow prosperity and daily blessings. And but she's a very mystical goddess as well, and I would consider her quite a gothic goddess,
Mm-hmm.
because she rules the underworld, and she's the gatekeeper of souls when they transition after death. So she has the dead souls kind of behind her as part of her sort of mystical power,
Mm-hmm.
and she's a moon goddess as well, with sort of regenerative and healing powers. And one thing that is associated with Hecate a lot is shadow work and doing psychological shadow work, delving into the dark aspects of soul for transformation. And she can be a goddess that cuts through illusions, but if you kind of work with her, you can expect a bit of tough love, because she might show you things that you don't want to see sometimes, you
Mm-hmm.
know, or kind of it's in your own best interest, but she will open doorways to things that you've not seen so that you can transform them, or will open spiritual doorways to you. And sometimes you have to do the work to access the greater psychic power.
Mm-hmm. Is that what they call like the three face goddess? Which I see statues that she has all three different faces.
Yeah, she's like a goddess of prophecy and time. So the three faces are the maiden, the mother, and the crone, the three states of life. So the maiden's kind of the virgin, and then the mother is kind of, because she's associated with midwifery and birth and children as well, protecting children. She governs that area, but then she also governs the crone, the wise old woman. And because she sees in three directions, it's said that she is the goddess of prophecy and visions,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a visionary goddess who can see through time to the greater wisdom.
Mm. Oh wow. So um I have people tell me that they have dreams with her, and when they come into the dream, she's always carrying hellhounds. What do you know about that? Have you heard anything about that? Her hellhounds.
Yeah, that is the way that she sometimes appears. She is associated with Stygian dogs. She has I think two black dogs that she's
Mm-hmm.
accompanied by, and often when I work with her as well, and this is a sign that she's around, is that the dogs start barking or they start whining, but for like a prolonged period of time, not just like an odd bark. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's when apparently she's around. And the dogs traditionally were, before they kind of became dogs, were dragons, and she was known as the mother of dragons. And the dragon symbol is something that I've just been introduced to recently, and
Hmm.
on with my research, I discovered that her traditional animal was the dragon. And so these are meant to be highly protective animals, like the black dog. If you think about the black dog and things like the black cat Bastet in Egypt guarded the tombs and things like that of the dead. So this is why she comes with the dogs.
Hmm. Oh wow. Yeah, she has a lot of similarities to a different goddesses and stuff that I've noticed from the little that I read about her. They say they even seen her with owls and stuff, which I don't know if it's true. But the dragon thing, that's new. That's interesting. To hear about the dragons. Now you mentioned belladonna. She works a lot with belladonna, the herbs. We don't.
That's
It's
yeah.
illegal here in the United States, like to purchase it. You have to grow it on your own. So I've been looking for that all over the place.
I
um,
don't personally work with belladonna. I mean, I try to avoid having kind of like poisonous and toxic herbs in the house,
mhm,
but she does have certain herbs like hellebore and mandrake root and things like that that would
mhm,
be her kind of poisonous herbs.
mhm,
And the owl is actually one of her main signs, and wherever she goes, she's meant to be accompanied by an owl. So if you see an owl, that's a sign also.
mhm. Now let me take you back. Were you always practicing this, or were you like, if you don't want to answer this, it's fine. Were you Christian before this, or and you decided to go on a different path, like a different calling? Because it happens to us a lot. Like for example, I was Catholic, I was into Pentecostal, but then I'm like, I just walked away from that path and decided to go on a deeper spiritual. Did you get that calling from her like that, or did you feel that calling?
It was a slow kind of calling because I was brought up a Christian and I got taken to church by my parents and
Hmm.
my auntie and things like that. And my auntie was quite strictly Christian. And I appreciate the teachings of the Bible. And I think that they have some really good things to say.
Hmm.
But also, I experienced things when I was growing up. For example, we lived in a house that had kind of paranormal things going on, and there were
Ooh.
things that I couldn't explain. And
Hmm.
so I got quite interested in ghosts and the supernatural when I was a teenager and started studying that. And
Hmm.
when I went to university, actually went to university in Cornwall, which is an incredibly witchy place. And they've got the Museum of Witchcraft down there, which is, I think, it's the only museum of witchcraft in England. And also, there's the Tales of King Arthur down there. There's Tales of the Cornish Piskies.
Hmm.
It's a very sort of mystical
Is that
place,
by
and
the
there's
bay
lots of
there? Is that by the bay?
the
Um, th-
bay.
yeah, does it have a bay? Because I think I was looking at something like that a few weeks ago. There's a museum. It's the only museum of witchcraft in England, I think. But I think there is a bay, if I'm not mistaken, there.
There's quite a few bays, yeah.
Because I
There
had
is.
the reason why, and this is funny, the reasons why, because I was doing a reading to a client, and she brought up that she had a dream that she was there and she was in this yellow house, and that she used to live there, and she told me the story. She described the streets, and then when she said that town, I googled it and I looked it up, and I saw a little bay there, and I saw that museum of witchcraft there. And it's funny that you just mentioned that thing, and I had a reading with her a couple of weeks ago. So we were talking, and she was like, "I really have to go there," and then I was like, "Well, look for a sign." That will take you there. But I guess now this is her sign. You bring in that conversation about that town, and I know she'll be looking at this video later on. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's just amazing how um, people are put in a path, like for a sign or for a reason. So
Mhm.
it's just amazing. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I went to probably the most spiritual place you could go in the UK. It's not really sort of the UK. I mean, Cornwall likes to think of itself as its own country in many ways, but it's attached to the UK. And I got into spiritual stuff there, and there were lots of witchy shops selling tarot cards, crystals, that kind of thing, spiritual fairs, and I was kind of not kind of like dabbling, but sort of like curious about many different religions down there, and I ended up going to a spiritual church. And at the spiritual church, one of the readers, who was an old lady, told me that I had medium's eyes or clairvoyant eyes, and she well, the church kind of introduced me to psychic development. So I started doing psychic development and doing psychic meditations and things like that. And I bought my first tarot deck in Cornwall from a witch shop, but I didn't really understand it at the time. And I was still kind of battling with my Christianity as well, because a lot of Christianity is a dogma that's sort of based around fear. And with the tarot, I've always been attracted to things that sort of hold a certain amount of mystery. And but I had this internal dialogue where I felt like I shouldn't be doing it, because I know what my parents would say, I know what my auntie would say, and they were like, that's evil, get away from it. But since then, and since I've kind of had a dark night of the soul, I started reevaluating everything in my life and why I'm doing it, and kind of finding the deeper meanings. And I've always been quite sort of intellectual and bookish, and I always used to go to the library at uni and come back with 15 books and read them in a day, you know. And so, having worked for 10 years and not really looked at many books, I kind of went back to that kind of personality that I was before, and I started researching the origins of religion and things like that, and getting into the Greek kind of goddesses was appealing to me as well, because it's older than Christianity. But I think working with Hecate as well has opened me up to other deities, because she will introduce you to any deity that can help you on your path. And one thing that I have been kind of researching recently is Egyptian, the Egyptian kind of spirituality, and the Hermetic principles of life, and the Book of Thoth, and the hidden Gospels as well, like the Gospel of Thomas, and how all these things. There's so much to Christianity that has been hidden from us, because we only have like a select number of Gospels that are available in the Bible, and they were kind of chosen according to what went together and what didn't contradict each other, you know?
Yeah, the Gospel of Thomas is very interesting. I read that, and I like the book of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth too. It's mind blowing. I was like reading it here in the audio. But the reason why I watched that, because now that I mean, because talking about Hecate now, the reason why I asked about Christianity is because I heard that there used to be a goddess that was worshipped way before Christianity. Had to do a lot with helping people getting females getting pregnant, protector of female, and then when Christianity came, they turned her into the image of the old hag and being a witch and stuff like that. That's the reason why I asked you about Christianity. I don't know if you heard that about that story.
Yeah, she was demonized by the Christian church, but the Christian church demonized so many things
Oh
when they
yeah.
came along. They basically wanted to stamp on everything and make everything theirs and make everything new. So they built all their churches on ancient pagan sites of power and things like that, to kind of kill two birds with one stone, eradicate the previous kind of spiritual power and build their own empire. Um, but yeah, Hecate has kind of like sometimes been associated with the Egyptian goddess Heket, which is a fertility goddess, and she's kind of depicted as a woman with a frog's head, because frogs were seen as a sign of fertility, you know, because frogs lay so many eggs. They're sort of like a symbol of abundance.
Hmm.
Um, So if you see like the sign of a frog, that can be one of her signs as well. I can't remember what was the other thing you said.
No, I said that yeah, that they demonize her, but before that she was like you said, the goddess of fertility, and she helped a lot of women, especially women that were and like a violent relationship. But she was worshipped a lot, you know, and she was like a powerful goddess until Christianity stepped in and demonized her, basically, like they do, you know, to everything. You know,
Yeah.
nothing against Christian people that are watching this, you know, but you know, history is history. You know, you can't deny history. You know, people use religion to do horrible things, you know, in the name of religion or in the name of this God and stuff, you know, which we were just talking earlier before we started this video on how, you know, what we call demons nowadays, the things that we call demons nowadays are actually were all goddess and all gods, you know. It's just the way Christianity has demonized them and put them in a bad name, you know, because it's like anything that's against them, they, you know, look at it's bad, that is bad. So
Yeah.
um, it's just weird. But um, for example, somebody came to you and they told you, you know, they were interested in learning about Hecate. What would you recommend them to do first?
Well, there's a lot on the internet. I mean, there are books on her as well. I just bought, I think last week, Hecate's Liminal Rights
Mm,
off Amazon, and there is a brilliant website by a lady called Cindy Brannan who runs this website called Keeping Her Keys, because Hecate is seen as the universal key holder who opens all the doorways. So um, she's got a lot of information about Hecate on keeping her keys online, and she does post blogs about rituals, different rituals you can do at different times of the year and things like that. So that's a really good source of information. Other than that, there's a lot of information on just YouTube. There are other witches that do work with Hecate, and one of the main ones that I follow is David, who is also known as Hectarios
mm, I heard of
on
him.
YouTube. Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
heard
he
of him.
works with Hecate a lot, and he's an oracle of Hecate,
Mhm,
and he teaches witches a lot of practice. He's quite established, and he actually has a coven online that I'm part of, Hecate's coven. I think it's called Empowerment for Witches Coven on Facebook.
mhm,
But he posts some really good things about working with Hecate as well. And
mm.
yeah, I think it's just, the information's there. Everything's available nowadays. There's not much that's really hidden. You can kind of just
Yeah.
type in Hecate and stuff will come up.
Is there like a ceremony or an initiation that you have to do before you start working with her, or you just basically just start believing in her and doing your things with her? But I mean, mostly, did you go to any ceremonies or any initiation, or is that mostly like a cabinet thing?
I have undergone some sort of initiation, but it's not anything to do with Hecate. It was like a spiritual initiation that I was part of when I was 24, and I believe it was either like a Freemason or Illuminati kind of ritual that I was part of, where I was initiated to the God Force and
Mm-hmm.
psychic basically skills. And I still to this day don't know exactly what ritual that was, because the guy who kind of passed his knowledge and powers on to me died about a couple of weeks after the ritual
Oh wow.
in quite strange circumstances, and um, and so I've never really got to ask him any more about that. It was just a case of, apparently this is what something that true Rosicrucians or true Illuminati do, is they, when they know that they're going to die, they pass on their knowledge to an initiate, and that really was my initiation into magic itself, because that sort of gave me the psychology of understanding the kind of laws, the hermetic laws and things like that. But since then, I kind of forgot all about it, and he told me to kind of pass it on, like spread it like wildfire, basically, this wonderful thing that opens the God force in everyone. But I felt like it was something really powerful, and with power comes responsibility, and I felt like I shouldn't really meddle with it until I know what it is. So have just kind of put it to one side, and I've worked for 10 years, and then this last year I kind of came back to um, magical workings. And I think if you want to work with Hecate, you you can kind of send her a little prayer and ask her for signs, and she'll send you a number of signs. And if you get so many signs, then it probably means that she wants to work with you. And they can be any of her signs. So
Can you read the questions they're asking you? Is it appearing, the question they're asking you there?
the deep non, yes, I did the deep non. That's the dark moon ritual, and the deep non's where you prepare an offering of the traditional offerings, and I put apple and honey and poppy seeds into a bowl, and then you take it and you leave it at a crossroads. And that was the night that I had that psychic dream to the otherworldly portal, and it opened me up to kind of possibly what happens after death, but also what the void state feels like. And I think when you do magic and things, it's important to know what that void feels like, because it's all about electromagnetic frequency and energy, but also focus.
Now, how have you changed, you personally, coming from a Christian background into this? Um, do you think you have gotten a lot of benefits from it? I mean, has it changed your personality? Um, like, more psycho, more aware, more like seeing things, more spiritual. I know that once when I joined, the African tradition, it changed my world around. From coming from a Christian background into this, it's like seeing things that weren't there before that I didn't see. It opened, my chakra, it opened my senses. And you know, the how what for example, what gifts do you think you got from this, or what has your life, you think, it's been on a good path, or I'm asking questions that normally somebody who wants to get it start with this would ask. For example, um, is it fine stepping away from what I grew up with and follow my path? What would, could I encounter danger? Will their spirits hurt me? Will they, do some crazy things to me, basically?
Mm-hmm. Um, well, I've been through like many transitions. I feel like I've been through a different life every like 8 to 10 years of my life has been a different life completely. And I would say since I've got into witchcraft this last year, some interesting things have happened. I've learned about psychic protection and things like that. I've become more grounded in my energy. Certain things I noticed before. It's really strange because, say, last year, I had certain people talk to me and they kind of approached me with kind of a bit of an attitude. And since I've got into witchcraft, unbeknownst to them, when I go out in the daytime, I don't really go out dressed like this. But those people have had a completely different attitude towards me since, and it's almost like they've forgotten what they even said to me. And also, my psychic work has really deepened as well. Like, I just get messages so easily now, and my third eye's got stronger, and I go to a psychic development group in the village here,
Mm.
and
How
I
about your
think it's
vision? Your vision to see the spirits. How's that gotten?
well, I just tap in. I When I do a meditation, I just clear my mind, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm really good at doing that because of the initiation that I went under, which basically it took everything out of my mind, so there was nothing left anymore. Um, and I became very conscious of thought. So I enter a state of the void, and then I when I'm doing medium work, I mean, I get psychic stuff all the time, like psychic impressions. I'm naturally an empath, and I always have been an empath, and it's been quite a struggle for me as a child because I was like a psychic sponge, just absorbing everyone else's emotions and not really having kind of, or not being able to tell which emotions were mine or someone else's. And I would feel energies of rooms and buildings and things like that as well. And it's kind of like a gift and a curse because you have the ability to transform people's emotional states. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, after speaking to me, they go away saying that they feel so much better, and like I've lifted a weight off their shoulders. And I think that's part of the work as well, is like this transformational aspect. And but when I'm doing mediumship work, I mean, with psychic stuff, it comes in the third eye. I see visions, and I feel things in my heart, and then I feel things in my solar plexus. Like what I've had precognition before, that's been like my heart and my solar plexus, and I've just known things. But
Mm-hmm.
then with my psychic vision, I see things as well. And when I'm doing medium work, it's different because you actually invite the spirits in. And the first thing that I feel to know that the spirits are there is I get like a feeling of a really cold lake on my back. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm next to water, it's just like a pond or like a really cold lake. Um, and I often get like a feeling of someone touching my head this side as well, like this.
You feel like your
And
head
that's when I
expands?
know. Huh?
Do you feel like your head expands, like it blows, like gets bigger, like that goosebump feeling and that tingling sensation behind your neck and stuff in your head?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, I don't know about my energy expanding, but it definitely, I do open it. Obviously, I do my psychic protection first, but when the spirits come in, that is different to psychic work because you you kind of hear things and you see things, and sometimes it can be so spot on and really like particular things, like specific particular things, and it's just like bang, 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 bang.
Oh
It's this
wow.
person,
Yeah.
and the last reading that I did was just kind of like it's often sort of random things, but they all connect,
Mm-hmm.
like very specific flowers and very specific things. I mean, I did the last reading I did. I said I'm getting a message about someone like a haircut, like you need to go and get a haircut. And the lady that I read for just burst out into laughter, and she said, "Okay, yeah, you're describing basically my grandma." And what I did this last week was someone cut my hair for me, and they basically like pulled my hair into a ponytail at the front and snipped it.
Oh
and
wow.
um, and it's kind of went wrong, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's just like that, you know.
Mm-hmm. Wow. You mentioned something earlier, that you say, having this psychic ability and this gift is a good thing, but at the same time, like a curse. Because there are a lot of people out there wanting to, like, when can I see things? When can I hear spirits? I want to see them so bad. And once they start, it's like, oh my God, get this away from me. Because that's something I experienced. Like, you start freaking out, you start seeing things that you really don't want to see, and now you can't really control it. So it is a gift, but then at the same time, it's like a curse because you're always like being scared, or being you walking into a corner and all of a sudden you see something or you hear something and you start getting spooked out. And before you were just living a normal life. So It is weird. Now, how do you communicate with her? How do you communicate with Hecate?
I sometimes I will say a little prayer, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of because she has different facets, um, like she shines the light in dark areas and things like that. I will sort of like maybe ask for illumination on a certain issue that I'm struggling to understand, things like that. And the way that I communicate with her most powerfully is through meditation, and I I'm not the only person who gets this. Actually, Hectarius gets this as well when he communicates with her. But the last time I did a meditation with her was it sort of in a group setting, and it was the first time that I actually invited her to come and sit next to me in the room. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this now because I don't want to do it all by myself because I might get freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
So I invited her to come and sit next to me, and immediately I got a vision of her, which is not how she appears. It wasn't like three heads. It was a woman who was quite beautiful, but she had quite dark eyes around the eyes, and she really pale skin, like white skin, and she was wearing a black cloak, and she had just come up from the underworld from the summer, and I got a real sense of like this forlorn kind of sad feeling, like, oh, there's so much wrong in the world, and we've got to do something about it. And she often kind of like comes up and then goes on the warpath and sorts these issues out and gets people
Mm-hmm.
to see things in different ways. And but one thing that happened when she came and sat next to me, because when I got my vision of her, she was like she was sitting on the bench next to me, but the whole room started popping, knocks, pops
Wow.
everywhere. It's like this is what happens, and it's like knocking on the window, knocking on the ceilings, the pipes start popping.
Mm.
um and I thought, wow, that's so powerful, she's definitely here.
Yeah.
And then after I finished the meditation, it all went back to silence again. um so if you do a meditation with her, you get that popping, that's like her telling you she's there. And sometimes if you think something or say something that's especially relevant or pertinent, and like, yes, go with that, she'll give you a knock to kind of like say, yep.
Mm. Wow. I had a friend that told me that she actually was taken. She took her down to her like in between, the underworld and like a waiting place where she saw her friends, that treated her bad when she was young, basically being punished, and asked for forgiveness there. It's like a waiting area. I forgot what they called it there. And so I know there's a word for it. But it's before you get to
Purgatory.
which one?
It's purgatory.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and she actually saw somebody who actually committed suicide there because she works with her a lot, and I was like, oh wow, interesting. And I've always been drawn to her energies, but I have so much things. I work with the Holy Death, Santa Muerte. I work with the African traditions. I work with spiritualism. I work with Mayan stuff, and I'm like, one more thing I have to learn and work with. I'm like, no, but I mean, I'm being drawn to her and the Lilith, as I'm very drawn to.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Now, um, I'm trying to figure out. I just can't. I'm normally good at this, but are you an Earth sign?
Yes, I am a Capricorn. Capricorn
Okay.
with Gemini rising.
Gemini. I knew they had
Yeah.
some Gemini in there. I'm like, wow, the way
Yeah.
your air is. I'm like, she has to have some air in there, some Gemini. I was trying to like figure out because I do also, study a little bit of astrology and stuff, and it's the um, it's because somebody's watching there, and I was like, I think I told her that I guessed your sign, but anyways, it's yeah. Um, has she taken you and your dreams to any like of those places? Like, uh,
Yeah.
can you
Yes.
talk about that?
I mean, I've got a whole video of it on my YouTube
Okay.
about my first deep non and what actually happened after the ritual and me having this dream. But this dream, what happened in the dream was a collection of souls came
Mhm.
and kind of picked me up and took me to this doorway. And this door, beyond this doorway, was just complete black. It was just void. And as I stepped through this doorway, I felt intense fear, which was the same kind of feeling that I got from my first initiation into the occult. And what happened was, as I went through the doorway, all of my senses closed down, my hearing closed down, my feeling of tactile, like touch, went away, my sight disappeared, everything disappeared, and the only thing that was left was my heart, and it was like an electromagnetic frequency.
Mm.
And it disturbed me for about a week after I dreamt it. But I thought, well, maybe that's what death is. You know, like after we die, we obviously don't have a body. We have to, if we're going to continue, we have to become something else. And you know, like physics says, like once an energy exists, it can't not exist.
Mhm.
And like Einstein's theories of energy and how it kind of like it doesn't stop existing, it just transforms into something else. And the Hermetic principles say this as well. Um, so I felt like I was just being shown this void state, which I feel is really important for witches and people who do magic work, because as witches and also other kinds of people like artists, musicians, actors, they conjure these states up in themselves and they work from the state. Um, and as you know, probably, you know, when you do a spell, you kind of conjure a certain emotion and you channel that emotion into the spell. And I feel like this void state was kind of like an initiation, because it's where all the states come from. So it's sort of like where we come from, but maybe where we're going to.
Yes, and it's nice that you said that because a lot of people don't understand that when you're doing ritual and you're working with ritual magic, you have to get in a certain state of feeling. You know, it's not like let's just do it and do this and do that. You have to bring that energies in yourself, you know, because
Yeah,
that energy is very important when you start working with that. Because the one that's doing the work is you. Yes, that spirit, that goddess is gonna help you to a certain point, but it's your energies that you're using and throwing it out there. You know, it's nice that you brought that. Not many people understand that concept about spiritual work or ritual magic.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, is there anything else like you want to share with us? I see you wearing a necklace. Oh, real quick, is there like a dress code, you know, that you have to do when you work with Hecate?
She likes the color black.
Okay.
It's something I've always been a fan of, but she does have colors, and her colors are red, white, and black, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's black for the underworld, red for the blood of life and the life force, and then white for the stars and the starry sky. And and so I do dress a lot in black and white anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And these are colours that are used a lot in kind of like Freemasonry anyway, and represent like the dark and the light aspects of the soul, and all those are important for like spiritual work and unifying those two extremes. Um, there's probably quite a lot I could say about her. I mean, I've got quite a lot about her in my book of shadows, and the things that are kind of associated with her. And as far as dress codes go, I mean, when you build an altar to her, it
Mm-hmm.
is it's good if it's sort of like a dark altar. I don't know if I can just show you mine, but
Yes,
this is
yes,
my
if you want to.
that's my that's my
Oh,
altar covered there.
oh, that's nice.
So I've got all my herbs there. I've got
Mm-hmm.
herbs drying out. I've got a skull to represent the dead on the altar.
Mm-hmm.
and I've got quite a lot of candles as well because she comes up from the underworld. So you light a lot of candles to kind of represent
Shine of
her
the light.
torches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Um,
Yeah, I saw a video, something that you were mentioning about you changing to dressing in white now, or something like that. I think I saw one of your YouTube videos, where you switching to wearing all white and stuff. Probably because you were doing a ritual or something. But that's a nice looking necklace you have there.
this is a
The
mother of pearl, which is a stone that's sacred to Hecate. She's got various stones that are sacred to her. Silver is one of her colours, obviously, because that's like the moon, the colour of the moon.
hmm
Um, then she likes the mother of pearl. She likes all the black stones, and she likes amethyst because amethyst is the spiritually transformative stone. And I've got other things as well, like owl rings and
Oh, so you
um,
really started getting all into it and stuff, like putting 100% of your effort into it, which is good. A
yeah,
lot of people just want to start something and give 5%, 10%, or they give up real easily, on their path, and it seems like you have been going forward non-stop 100% of the way, which is really good.
yeah. I mean, like since I started witchcraft earlier this year, that's how fat my book of shadows has got.
Eh,
um,
yeah,
and
and
that's
that's
not all
another important.
Hecate stuff, but
And that's another
but
important is, people need to take notes on what they do, the rituals they do, to always go back, so the Book of Shadows is very important. I had many books when I started, even though it wasn't Wicca, but it was more in the African traditions and also more in the Mayan stuff. But I always wrote everything down, which is very important. Um,
yeah.
is there, now I'm gonna let you loose. That means that I'll let you talk on whatever you want. I ask the questions and stuff. That way, if you wanna give us some more knowledge on that, you're welcome to.
Um, okay. Well, I could kind of like give you a bit of background knowledge on her and her kind of correspondences and things like that.
Okay.
Um, so her parents are Perses, which is Perses is known as the Destroyer. He's like a Greek god that's huge and muscular and fiery, um, and he's also known as the Ravager. Kind of, he comes in and destroys stuff. And then her mother is Asteria, who is a goddess of stars, and she's known as the Night Oracle. So they gave birth to Hecate together, and which is why Hecate is sort of like, if you cross her, she can be really destructive and send people mad and things like that. And she's very protective of her witches. And also, if you don't abide by her moral rules, like if you're cruel to animals or if you are cruel to people who um, are at a disadvantage or things like that, she can't abide that. She's quite a forceful goddess, and she's associated with the goddess Persephone, who is like a maiden goddess, and she was abducted by is it Hades,
Hades,
the Lord,
yeah, the
yeah,
yeah, the
and
Lord of
taken
the
into the
underground.
underworld,
Yeah.
and the um, the role of Hecate was that she alerted her mother Demeter to the fact that she'd been abducted by love into the underworld, and she helped her journey back up into the upper world. So she's sort of protective of Persephone, and often when you make offerings and things like the pomegranate's really associated with Persephone, and
hmm
so Hecate likes pomegranates. Um, so I think regarding other signs with Hecate, the butterfly is a sign of hers because that represents transformation, and
Oh, the caterpillar.
butterfly.
Oh, okay. Okay, I thought it was like the
Uh,
caterpillar and
you
then
know,
turning into the butterfly. I
Yeah,
might be wrong.
yeah, like a
Okay.
caterpillar that turns into a butterfly.
Okay.
And she kind of introduces you to everything across the span of witchcraft. Really, I mean, I got interested in tarot before I got interested in witchcraft, even. And I think tarot kind of led me on to witchcraft. And so she kind of rules divination tools and things like that.
Mm. That's funny you say that because my friend got, it was Hecate, I believe, who introduced her to the Holy Death, La Santa Muerte.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know if you've seen her videos. Her name is Janelle Longoria. She has a lot of videos on Hecate also. She was the one asking the questions earlier. Um, but yeah, keep going. I'm sorry, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like Santa Muti has some things in common with Hecate in many ways. Like she is a dark goddess as well. But one thing I've heard about Santa Muti is that she's quite possessive, or like she
Hmm.
likes an altar herself. Like
Hmm.
you don't
Yes.
put other people on her altar. So I've always been a little bit, what's the word? A little bit not scared, but kind of like wary about working with Santa Muti.
Now you're like, okay, we all share in the house. Nothing is everyone's. We all share. We all get along. Be nice.
Um, I think one thing, I mean, with herbs and things like that as well, there are certain trees that she's associated with, and the main one is the yew tree, which is the witch's wood. It's known as the witch's wood, and it's the tree of the underworld, and often witches have wands made of yew, the yew tree. But she's also associated with willow and the black poplar, and these are like the willow. I don't know if you know about willow, but it's got like a bark that's got
Yeah.
herbal properties that are sort of
Yes.
like pain relieving.
Hmm.
Um, but it's also got like I think toxic aspects to it.
Okay. Um, they're asking you a question. I don't know if you can see it. It's a directly question to you. Alex just asked you a question. Can you see it? Do you see it?
Has the owl manifested to you in physical form?
Yes, second. Yeah, go ahead. Keep answering. I'll be right back.
The owl. Well, the strange thing about owls is, and this is another sign that I got when I was a child, but where I used to visit my grandparents a lot when I was a child because my mum was ill when I was a child. And so I used to go and spend time at my grandparents' house. And my grandparents had, they were big fans of taxidermy, and they had a white snowy owl at the top of the stairs that was in like a domed case with all snow on the ground. And it was like sparkly snow. And this white snowy owl always kind of captured my imagination as a child. And every time I would go upstairs, it would be right at the top of the stairs. And my grandparents also had a real owl that was nesting in their driveway. And for as long as I can remember, when we were a child, we always used to go over for Sunday dinner, and we often used to hear the owl hooting, and we'd look up in the trees and see the owl sitting there. Um, but since then, I have heard an owl at the back of my house, but also a few years ago, I had a really, I would say, like a visionary dream of an owl standing on a book of knowledge. Um, and it was like, I don't know what it was trying to tell me, probably to become more educated or something, but I've always felt like an affinity with owls because they're known as wise and associated with wisdom. And I always think that I'm a little bit like that because I'm very thoughtful about what I do and I always think things through and kind of try to come to wise conclusions about things. So, how do I differentiate between a coincidence or something that is fueled by her? Well, that's the strange thing because she actually works through coincidences, but sometimes you'll get so many of these all in a row. Like recently, I went to York and we were only there for like a day or so. But we stayed overnight there in a hotel, and it was full of skeleton keys, which is one of her signs. Our door had a skeleton key on the door as like a little logo. Um, I saw an owl symbol while I was in York, and we actually went to this old building, and it just so happened that we caught the time just right to visit this exhibition of witchcraft and mystery. And
Oh
it had
wow.
all this witchy stuff inside of like all the herbal correspondences and sigils, and I was just fascinated by it all because that was when I was really starting to get into witchcraft. And I thought, wow, we've just happened upon this exhibition that is literally on for a short amount of time, and we've hit this town just at the right time. Um, and then I went into a shop there and discovered the Witch's Almanac there as well. And just shortly before I went as well, I was producing sort of medieval ink illustrations based on medieval woodcuts. And when I went to York, these medieval ink illustrations that were like woodcuts were absolutely everywhere. And I thought, okay, if that's not a sign that I should be doing medieval illustrations, what is? But it was just like, it's sometimes literally like bang, 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 bang. So many things lining up, all like coincidences simultaneously. Sometimes when I go out to the shops as well, like I'll see certain things just like, for example, I tour around the antique stores and I always look for bargains, and I just like stumble upon, well, I don't know if I can show you, but
Yeah, you can show
still.
whatever you feel comfortable with showing. I mean, I don't wanna.
So
I know a lot of people keep their secrets and stuff. Don't want to show things, you know. But
so at the
whatever.
antique store,
Oh
I
wow,
found
look at
this
that.
one day.
That's
That's
beautiful.
um that's an owl, and then I found this other one as well shortly after, which is the owl and the crescent moon, and Hecate is known for crescent moon.
Yes,
And and in the same store, I found this miniature cauldron, the witch's cauldron.
yes, that's beautiful.
So it's like sometimes you can just find many things that are all kind of connected, you know, and
It's like a calling, right? Like whatever. Sometimes you need something, and all of a sudden, it's like it appears to you, whatever you need. You know, like you manifest it there. You know, I seen a lot of people do that. For example, my girlfriend has luck with finding things like she needs it, and next thing she knows, it's there, and and it's for free. You know, she's like, oh, I
yeah,
could really use this. It's like they bring the things to you that you really need, and that's kind of funny. Um,
yeah, that's true quite a lot of the time. Yeah, I mean, whenever I found things, it's like I've seen something I wanted and it's really expensive, and then I found something that's even better and it's next to nothing.
exactly.
Um, but I know, like, for example, one example of coincidence. Maybe this is not related to Hecate, but Hecatarios of the coven did a protection spell for all the witches in the coven this one day. And the same day, I went out to the charity store, like the local charity store, and in the charity store, I found this ring that had an owl on it. And it was like a silver ring with an owl. And I thought, oh, that's lovely, and it reminds me of Hecate. And then right next to it was a necklace, and it was a pentagram necklace.
Oh
I thought,
wow.
okay, what's that doing in the local charity shop? Not many people are Wiccans or witches around here. Um, and then I found something else as well that day in the store. Oh yeah, I found in the same day, pretty much, I found a Cornish piskie, which had travelled like 400 miles up from Cornwall to here in Yorkshire.
Mm.
And all the time when I was in Cornwall, I never kind of had much to do with the piskies. I went to the Witchcraft Museum, but piskies are a really big magical thing down there. And I thought, okay, if that piskie is not for me, then I don't know who it's for. So
Yeah.
I ended up getting the piskie.
Wow. It's just amazing the things that you will find when you need it and less expect unexpected. It just amazes. I do that all the time. I look for something and I'm like, no, I'll wait. It's just too expensive. And then I turn around and I find it for like you said, next to nothing. And I'm like, well,
Yeah,
I guess it was really meant for me, you know. Now,
yeah.
I just thought on something else. Do you incorporate different systems into your Hecatarian work? For example,
I,
other like Wicca stuff to it, like herbal practices or herbal baths. Do you use her energies? Do you incorporate that?
I do a lot of protection work. Like, I mean, because I'm an empath and I pick up all that superfluous energy, I think in regards to like, I mean, you say like all psychic skills are like a curse and a blessing at the same time. Now, with psychic skills, I think, oh, they're pretty easy to handle, you know, because I'm not really scared of spirits and things like that. The thing that worries me is people. And as an empath, I have kind of like, I do have a tendency to attract, when I don't have protection, negative people, like really negative people, because they see like I've got quite a high vibe and they just go to me like a moth to a flame. Um, and so I attract a lot of narcissists and psychopaths. And so protections become like a big part of my witchcraft practice because I just think that psychic protection is so important for anyone anyway. But I've got all sorts of like protection oils, protection charms. And one thing that I do is I do have like ritual baths where I put a load of salt in the bath, like Dead Sea salts are really good. And then I put quite a lot of drops of lavender oil because lavender's Hecate's herb, but it's also
Mm,
psychically protective.
mm,
And then after I have my bath, I anoint myself with like protection oil and put all my protection things on.
mm. Now, do you wear crystals when you
Uh,
go out and stuff like that for protection?
yes, I do. Yeah, I love the black crystals. I used to wear amethyst, but I don't anymore because I did read somewhere that amethyst can kind of amplify all the energies that are present, whether they're good or bad. Um, but I think that it can transmute your personal energy from bad to good.
Mm,
So I've stopped wearing amethyst, but I do wear a lot of black. I've got like obsidian and jet and onyx and things like that. I've got a lovely jet antique beaded necklace that I wear a lot of the time. Um, and then I have quite a lot of crystals as well that I
mm.
use for meditation purposes and things like that.
Oh wow, that's nice. That's nice. Anything else you like to share? Going back to your the floor is yours before we um, you know.
Um, yeah, I just actually while I'm here, I might just like show you a couple of things because my brother is a blacksmith
Oh wow.
and he makes like protection charms and amulets, and he made me a couple of things, but he made me this troll cross which is
Mm-hmm.
made of iron. And one
Okay.
thing, like when you're working with Hecate, it's good to have iron around, whether that's like in a cauldron, because she's of the underworld and she's like a chthonic goddess. Iron kind of like grounds her. So on my altar, I've got my cauldrons, and then behind it, I've got black rocks, black tourmaline rocks,
Mm-hmm.
and quite a bit of salt, and then I've like got a black egg, which I see as like transformation.
A black egg?
Um, a black egg, yeah. It's
Okay.
I think it's mahogany obsidian,
Mm.
and my brother made me this as well, which is the Capricorn sea goat Athame,
Mm.
because Hecate, she rules the land, she rules wild animals and the sea, and so this is like the wild animal with the horns and the Capricorn because I'm a Capricorn, so he made like Capricorn Athame. So yeah, that's just a couple of things that I wanted to share.
Okay.
Um,
I know you share a lot on your videos, and I looked up most of your videos will have a lot of good knowledge and stuff, in there. I know the channel is pretty new, but it's packed with a lot of information. And I like the way you actually show people how to do the stuff. It's not like most channels that just talk and it's blah 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 blah. You're more like hands-on and showing people. It's more like those people that want to see actually visually, not just talk about then I hear and I hear, which is nice. So that's why I recommend people that want to learn about Hecate, want to learn about protection spells and stuff, to tune into her channel. You want to share the channel, the name of the channel?
Yeah, it's just Ruth Ellen. I don't know really how you can sort of find me
Oh,
other than that
later on
on
you can go
YouTube.
back. You can go back and put the link in there if you want, and
Yeah.
yeah, in the comments, and people could look at it. And if they have any questions, they could go ahead and ask you there in your channel, or yeah, I know you have a personal page also, right? Um,
Yeah, on Facebook, it's Ruth Ellen Spiritual.
okay. And you do consultations too and stuff there, or
Consultations.
yes,
Um,
like
I
reading.
readings, yeah. Occasionally I do like go on to Periscope Live or Facebook Live, and I'll do like a set number of mini readings. But I do
Hmm.
page readings as well, like in-depth ones, and I do soul astrology,
Hmm.
because that's quite a big thing for Hecate is astrology. And so in the soul astrology, I kind of that's more for your life path and your soul purpose and your points of power and things like that. Um, so those are basically the two kind of readings that I offer is astrology and tarot.
Mm. Could you explain to us well, I know what it is, but a lot of people that are just tuning in or are learning about this, could you explain to us what an empath is? You mentioned that quite a bit. So, for those who are wondering what in the world is an empath.
Um, well, a lot of people think that they are an empath because um, nearly, if you're a normal person, you have empathy. Um, but an empath is like psychic empathy. And when you're like a child empath, you tend to absorb the emotions of everyone around you. Like, for example, um, I had a mum who was like quite depressed when I was a child, and I
Hmm.
used to absorb all her depression and take it in me and start feeling rubbish. And then she used to start laughing at me and saying, what are you depressed about? I feel great." And
Hmm.
and kind of like walk away feeling great and leaving me feeling rubbish. Um, but I kind of have an ability to kind of pick up on people's intentions and people's thoughts. I read people quite well, and the weird thing about it being an empath, and the main thing about being an empath, is that the blessing of it is that you have an ability to transform people's emotional states and people's spiritual states as well, um, or their vibration. And it's not just a case of empathy, but you actually see that person's soul and the kind of state of evolution that it's in, and you can kind of see the way that they are oriented in life as well. That involves their intentions and their thoughts and things like that. Um, so it's like a psychic awareness of people's energy and their thoughts and intentions. And I suppose the positive to it is that you understand people sometimes better than they understand themselves. You know what to give them to heal them.
Hmm.
And a lot of empaths are healers as well, which
Hmm.
I am, but I don't utilize that a lot. But the downside to it is, like I said, you attract a lot of people with psychoses and things because I think they sense that you can see those psychoses, and either like they feel offended by that, or they like if they don't feel threatened by it, then they feel like, oh, you can heal me, or oh, you've got nice energy. I'll just side up to you.
So you attract a lot of energy vampires to your life.
Yeah, a lot of energy vampires, but I think the main thing with an empath is learning how to be grounded in your own energy, and I think doing live videos like this has been really good for me, and doing Periscope, because you get a lot of trolls and people throwing insults at you and trying to bait you. Like, you can always sort of tell the psychopaths because they put really baity comments and they wait for you to respond with kind of like anger or get
So they
pissed
could
off with them,
feed up off your
um,
energy. I know.
but if you just stay centered and calm in your own energy, I mean, I've even had trolls that have apologized to me afterwards, um, but it just kind of rolls off me like water off a duck's back now. It's very rare that someone gets to me, and I did a spell recently, and I had a particularly aggressive troll that was so persistent, and they just were going on and on and on and taking over the entire feed. And it actually messed up the spell in the end because it interfered with my own energy and kind of came into the room where I was doing the spell. And that was kind of like a lesson for me. Like, okay, so my psychic protection's there, but it could be there.
Um, just out of curiosity, do you have either a Cancer or Pisces moon?
I've got a Libra moon, so I'm always
Oh,
like
wow.
trying to create harmony between people. I'm a natural peacemaker.
Mhm.
And it's always the case, like, I mean, with being an empath as well, you feel people's pain like it's your own, and that is actually quite painful sometimes, and especially when it's people that you care about and people that are close family. And for example, my dad worked with this man for sort of like 15 years, and one day they fell out, and their falling out was so bad that my dad was completely distraught. And I don't see my dad often, but I felt his energy was just so disturbed that I just thought, this is not right. I have to go to this other man's house and knock on his door and ask if he's all right. And so that's exactly what I did. But the man wasn't in, and his son answered. And the very next day, this man started talking to my dad again. And I thought,
Mm.
okay, I've done my work just by knocking on the door. Because he got so freaked out that someone was going to come and ask him if he was all right. I think that kind of pushed him into basically accepting the situation a bit more.
What would you call, in your own terminology? I know there's people always ask, how would you define as black magic? Do you practice that, by the way?
No, I don't know. I'm trying to stay away from it. Actually, I've been listening to a lot of occult lectures recently, and the main guy I've been listening to is really interesting, called Manly P. Hall, and he
Yeah,
I
I
think
heard.
because I've been initiated into the occult, and because I've been initiated into hermetics as well. The thing with hermetics is when you're initiated, if you don't abide by the hermetic rules, things can go really wrong really quickly. But they also give you kind of like a good basis for the understanding the energies of the universe. And a lecture that I listened to recently was all about secret powers and why you shouldn't use them. And I thought, okay, that makes sense. And he said basically, when you start using powers to like further your own benefit, then you feel like you have control in the world. But if you have control in the world, then that means that other people have control in the world too, and they could put spells on you. And he said the danger with it is that you end up in like a neurotic mess where you kind of lose your faith in the goodness of humanity and the goodness of like just your general faith in the universe, because you
Mhm.
feel like all the onus is on you to protect your life and to get what you want out of life. And I think the thing with black magic is the law of karma as well, is like the black magic can backfire on you quite easy, and a lot of the time with black magic is bending other people's will.
Mhm.
And I think when that happens, it's not for me, it's not the best use of energy because I'd rather be working on myself and making myself strong. So, I mean, sort of, for example, if someone in a love spell does not want to be with you and you put black magic on them to make them love you, that's really bad in terms of karma, because not only are you not going to learn the lessons for yourself, but that person's going to get messed up too. So I think it's like an awareness of all the details that go into it, because even if you do a money spell, for example, and with my last money spell, the money has to come from somewhere. Where's it going to come from? Who's that going to affect?
Yes, exactly.
It doesn't just come from nowhere. It doesn't just like grow on a tree and then you can pluck it off. There's a certain amount of money in the universe, and it's just about being aware of like your impact on everything when you start playing with the fabric of the universe. And Manly P. Hall said the best spell that you can do as an individual is to make a spell for your own enlightenment and for the well-wishing of others, because that's white magic, and that's like the best thing that you can do for the universe as a whole is to wish everyone healing and to wish everyone well, and to wish, because like if someone's hurt or if someone's struggling, if you wish them well, that brings healing. And if they're healed, then they contribute more to the universe and everything gives back instead of taking.
Mm. Yeah, that's good. That's a good message. Um,
I think like so many people are geared towards taking in today's society. So many people live in fear, it's like the collective fear. We're kind of always taught that there's not enough. But when you start putting out instead of taking, I think that comes back.
exactly.
And it gives you faith back in the universe, because if you're putting faith out there, that faith will come back.
Wow. That's good. Well, anything else that you want to share with us before we end it? Um, any other information you want to share about Hecate for those beginners and stuff? Guys, check out her YouTube. There's a lot of great information out there, and I'm not, I don't recommend many YouTubes and stuff like that, but when I see somebody putting their heart out there and showing people how to do that stuff, I have a lot of respect for those type of people. That not many people will give you free spells out there, they're always trying to make a buck, trying to get money out of you, and Ellen shows a lot of that good stuff, a lot of good information. So I do recommend that channel, so subscribe and watch. And if you're interested in Hecate, join her. I mean, join her in her journey.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's much I want to add. Just like if you want to work with Hecate, I think basically she's all about virtuous living. She cares a lot about the community, about the environment. And if you have the right kind of heart and you approach her with like authenticity, I think she is more willing to kind of like bring you blessings and things like that.
Mm. Oh wow. Okay. Well, how did that go? Was it easy? Was it a little easy interview? A lot of people get nervous when I tell them I'm gonna want to interview, so you can tell, and they get all nervous and they get all
You
worked up, and
know, I was a little bit nervous this week because I feel like I don't have very much experiential knowledge. I've read a fair bit,
hmm
but I've not been working with her that long. And
hmm
even though I feel like my relationship with Hecate probably started the day I was born, because when I had my Dark Night of the Soul this year, I looked up the name Ellen, and it means torchbearer or the shining one.
hmm
Um, and and then I saw the word Hecate and I thought, that's an interesting name. And my partner said to me, "Oh, you don't want to work with Hecate? She's like a demon." But that's because he didn't know a lot about her, and sort of like, I think the Christian church had kind of painted her as such. But I think that she kind of was drawn to me just from the way that I live, and I just feel like we have so much in common. Even the way that I respond to things is probably the way she would respond to things. Like if I see something wrong somewhere, I'll go and do something about it. And if I see someone suffering, I'll go over to them. And if, for example, if someone's in pain or someone's inflicting pain on someone else, sometimes this courage comes out of nowhere and I get quite angry about it. I'm like, I can be as nice as pie, but if someone crosses that border, they really cross that border. And I think she's very much the same.
Okay. Yeah, I understand you totally, you know. But, don't feel like you don't know much. You have a lot more knowledge than somebody who's starting in. And a lot of people, it's about here, what you put
Yeah,
on it, what you put in it, the effort that you do to get the message across, Um, you might think you might know not many book knowledge, but a lot of us are born with knowledge up here, you know,
yeah,
intuitional knowledge and that communication with that spirit, being taught directly by that spirit,
yeah.
So that's the good gift about it. So that might be in your call, and now you probably feel great working with her and working with her energies.
Yeah, it's a weird connection because I just almost feel like she's like a motherly figure.
Hmm.
Um, Almost like if you could imagine a character that was my mother. She's almost like more of what my mother probably would be like than my own mother, because I feel like I have all these qualities and she has similar qualities,
Hmm.
which is why I just feel like it's a good match. But I don't ever want to sort of be presumptuous and say that um, I just feel like we're a good match, so we're going to work together.
Hmm.
I have literally felt like she was calling me because she does have quite strict standards, and I think if you please her regarding the way that you live and your ethics, I think she's more likely to want to work with you and more likely
Hmm.
to like you can approach her.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And don't be afraid of the Santa Muerte. She doesn't bite, And just like she likes her own space, she protects her kids and her followers like really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, Ruth, it was wonderful talking to you. Wonderful to see where you're coming from, where your spiritual path has led you. Guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask her. And the video is there in my page. You guys could share it to different pages. I'm gonna share this to other pages as soon as we're done. I didn't have, it doesn't give me the option here. Um, I normally have a lot more viewers than this, but I'm gonna share it to YouTube and stuff. You're welcome to share it as well too. You know,
Hmm.
thank you for your time
Oh yeah, I'll
and
definitely share it.
yeah,
I think a lot of my Facebook people have tuned
it's
in
late.
tonight.
It's late over there,
Ne-
right?
Probably nearly all of them. It's evening over here, so I don't know what time it is, but I think we started this interview at 7 o'clock.
Over there?
So
Okay.
yeah, it's probably about 8:30 or 9 or something now.
Okay. So, well, anything else before we call it quits? You want to
No,
say
I think
anything
that's
else?
all really. Just
All right. Well,
yeah,
thank you, and hopefully we'll do another one later on when if you have anything else you want to add to this one, we probably do a part two.
yeah, okay, yeah.
All right.
Well, there
So,
are like certain dates that we could like discuss. Like what happens on certain dates. She's got dates throughout the year of like different ways that she expresses herself. So
mhm. And I
and
know,
there are specific dates like November's a really big time for her and Samhain as well because the veil is thin and she's all about kind of divination and communicating with spirits.
I know you were busy this last days doing your rituals and stuff. You told me that in the messages. So, I hope that went well, your rituals with her.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it was nice having you here with sharing your knowledge, Ruth. So guys, please
Thanks
go to the
thanks
YouTube
for
channel.
inviting me. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Um, Well, you have a wonderful and a blessed rest of the evening, I guess. And we'll see each other on YouTube.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Okay. Take
You
care.
too.
Bye.
Bye.